Well, for more on this, let's bring in Shaina Low, Communications Advisor at the Norwegian Refugee Council, joining us live from Amman in Jordan. Shaina, thank you very much indeed for your company. Let's begin with the US decision to stop its funding of USAID. That's a huge amount of money that goes to overseas projects, including the Middle East. What impact is that going to have on the people in Palestine?
Well, of course, the funding going to Palestine, the U.S. was providing a lot of funding that was supporting organizations operating in the occupied Palestinian territory, and especially in Gaza. So, of course, there are grave concerns, as we've seen. Many of our partners already have to cut staff, reduce programming, suspend programming. It certainly is going to have a massive impact on humanitarian efforts and the ability to provide life-saving assistance to Palestinians, particularly in Gaza.
Yeah, I mean, the aid, the tents, the food, the fuel, that's one thing. But the fact that those cuts have been made, how does that affect aid organizations who don't have the funds? How can they therefore go about their business or try to abide by the terms of the ceasefire agreement?
Well, what we're seeing, there are two parts to that question. First of all, what we are seeing is already many organizations are suspending programs. It's unclear whether they'll be able to keep on staff. And we know that even the amount of work that we were doing was nowhere near enough. It's also important to note that the humanitarian sector was not a part of these negotiations. And while doing everything that they can to support the delivery of aid, the agreement was made between Israel, Hamas, and the guarantors, and it's up to them to ensure that those that what was agreed upon in that ceasefire agreement is carried out.
If aid agencies had been consulted, if they were part of those discussions, if they had some input, what would be the key points that you'd be putting forward immediately and indeed for the near future?
Well, first of all, I think it's important that to zoom out a bit and recognize that aid should never be something that's negotiated on. This is a right that Palestinian people, that people around the world are entitled to. It shouldn't be something that's part of a bargaining chip and part of a political positioning. This is something that for the 15 months of hostilities, we were continually demanding to allow for the increase of aid, for unobstructed access, to bring in aid, unobstructed access to reach people in need. And so that really has been our primary focus, to ensure that no matter what happens, whether or not there's an agreement, whether or not the ceasefire continues, that the innocent civilians in Gaza continue to have a lifeline, continue to have access to essential services, continue to have access to food, water, clean medicine, shelter materials. That really is our priority.
Shaina, it's great to have your analysis, and thank you once indeed for coming on the news. I appreciate you coming on.